Have you ever felt guilty or overwhelmed by being a dad, trying to balance it all? Well, I've found that a concept called Tee30Golf really changed the way that I thought about how I can stay healthy, stay mentally refreshed, socially connected, and also do something for myself. Research says that men, 43% of us are going to have some sort of mental health challenge in our life, but only 25% will speak out about it. And the reason why, we might say things like, we don't want to be a burden, we don't want to embarrass ourselves, or I've just learned to deal with it. And that's what research actually says that guys talk about. So there's different ways to think about this, and today we're going to talk through some of these ideas and how we can unpack them. It was the 11th of November 2022, and I was sitting on my couch with my hands on my head, feeling absolute despairing. I was putting everyone else first and myself last. I was working long hours. I thought that was the answer, to keep working. I had a 6-month-old baby at that stage. My wife was at home looking after him, and I thought, why can't I sort of get through this? Why can't I go from, being someone who's sort of working over here, but also trying to be the best father and the best husband that I can be? So I started having anxiety. I started to have these really visceral nightmares where the baby would roll off the bed, to the point where I would wake up, still half asleep, and just tap my wife, because that's what I thought was happening. And so she would be like, what's going on, Andrew? And it got to the stage where this happened for a number of months, and I thought, something's got to change here. Hands up if you've ever felt overwhelmed just by being a dad and trying to work and balance it all together. Yeah, we've all had that experience before. It's not unique to me. So what I learned was that you need to have, the starting point is really about actually talking about it to someone that you trust, or at least going and seeking some help. So what I did was I thought, well, who can relate to me? I'm a new dad. A lot of my friends aren't dads. What can I do? So I reached out to the local dads group. And apparently they're an organisation that brings dads together where you just talk about dad stuff. And I thought, how cool is that? So I reached out to them in the local sort of area in Stonington, and we just brought my little baby, had a coffee, had a chat, and that really helped me with the social connection. I started to feel like what the stuff that I was feeling and taking on wasn't actually just confined to me. There were some other people out there who could actually share that experience. So that was me, and you can see I look pretty relaxed. That's not a good picture. That was me trying to hold it all together. And I don't know who took that picture. I don't think it would be me, but it could be, who knows. So when we talk about, I like to talk about these things in pillars. You would have seen on the sheet, we've got 3 pillars that I believe can really help us have strong overall health. Our social health, our mental health, our physical health. And the first thing that I know is to be true is that it's play. So play is interesting. Who's got kids under 6? Everyone. And you'll notice how they love to play. And it's so fun after we've played with them. We love that experience as well. And the reason why is because play is all wrapped up in emotions. And we use it as a way to control our emotions, but also regulate our emotions. We let off stress, blow off steam, so to speak. So play is a really important part of just being ourselves, but particularly when we've got sort of dad stuff to think about. So I remember I was in Kunang Road, the ANZ Bank was right there. I just got off the phone to my accountant, and they said that I didn't have enough money to pay my team or myself that month. And I felt such a failure because here I was, the baby was still young. I was working extremely hard, just relentless, trying to solve this problem of being the provider, trying to do all the things that you're told to do as a guy. But I was failing at that. But what I also felt was just this real sense of shame. How could I go and tell my wife that I can't even support my team? I can't pay myself this month. How am I going to support my family as well? And so for me, that was a real turning point because I realized that I couldn't keep going down this path. If I thought that work was the answer, it clearly is not the answer. My bubble was work, but also be a great husband, be a great father, be a great sales guy, be a great team leader, all this sort of stuff. So I was taking all this stuff on, and I sort of audited what was going on. And the first thing was I was doing nothing for myself. So I stopped talking to my mates. I stopped exercising. I put on 10 kilos very quickly. As you can see, I'm not a huge guy, right? So it was a bit of an eye-opener for me. And the first thing I did was, okay, well, maybe I need to have a conversation with the most important person to me. Maybe I need to talk to my wife and just tell her how I'm feeling. And of course, she'd spent the last 8 months absorbing all the pressure of looking after the baby. It's a full-time gig, we all know that. It's relentless, it's unforgiving, but that's what she was doing. So I naturally felt like, can I do that? Like, do I have the right to sort of ask for something for myself? But I thought, you know what? I've got to say something. So I remember we all set up for a pram walk. Baby was in the front here. My wife was at my side. And we started walking, and I said, I need to share something with you. I know all the stuff that you do is amazing, but I'm really struggling. What do you think about going for a run? Me. I'd love to go for a run. What do you think about that? And to my absolute delight, she said, you know what, I've been thinking about the same thing. We need to start doing some stuff for ourselves, like, why don't next week, how about you go on a run on Wednesday and I'll go ice skating. I would love to go just for a skate just for myself. So maybe we could do that on Tuesday. And that really opened up this great discussion where now we started planning some self-care activities for ourselves. And I started to get a bit of life back, and I started to look forward to the 20-minute run that I could manage at a very slow pace. But that was something to look forward to, and that was really cool. So what I learned there is, when you talk about play, our loved ones actually just want the best for us. We've got to kind of overcome that idea of, I might feel guilty about talking about it. Like, they genuinely want what's the best for us. They want us to be happy because they know that will flow into all the other area of their lives. If we show up feeling great because we went to the gym or we went for a walk around the block, then it's going to be good for everyone. So as time went on, I remember seeing an email from my friend Ben. And Ben is an exercise physiologist. And it was just a simple email, but the bottom of the email, I'll always remember. It said he played for Australia at the World Speed Golf Championships. Now, I've been around golf for a long time. Hands up who's ever played golf before. Okay, see, we're not golfers. I never heard of speed golf. I said, what's this speed golf? I'm really intrigued. Tell me about it. I've got a lot going on, but what is it? And he said, look, I'll show you. So he took me out Thursday morning, Oakleigh golf course. And I vividly remember it's like 6 a.m. The birds are sort of tweeting away. I was a bit sort of nervous because I hadn't done any running in years. And now he was asking me to essentially hit and jog our way around the golf course. That's what speed golf is. And I can't tell you that I remember much about the golf at all, but what I do remember is the conversation. The laughter, the banter. He talked about how he and his partner were expecting in 8 months. It was just a great conversation. Afterwards, we had coffee and we just talked about life. But the best thing was, I remember walking up to the front door and I had this massive grin on my face. I was a bit sweaty. It wasn't even 7 o'clock yet, so baby and my wife were sleeping, and I thought, how good's this? I've got my social, chat with my mate, I've got outside, I've done a bit of physical activity. This could be, there's something here. You know, we don't have to complicate it. It's literally 30 minutes of having a chat and a run, and we've filled our cup. That's great. So again, what I learned there is we don't need a lot of time and overcomplicate the sense of play and doing self-activity for ourselves. We can just choose something that suits us, and we're going to talk a little bit about that as we go, so you can figure out what might suit for you in terms of play. So that's so we're thinking about play, and so the other day I heard a story about a dad. The daughter told me the story, and she was saying that her dad many years ago joined a group of guys, and they decided to play golf on a Sunday. And this is when she was really little, so she remembers it a little bit. But she told me that every Sunday morning, rain, hail or shine, any condition, her dad and the group of mates would just go around and they'd play their 9 holes. And he'd always come back refreshed. Anyway, the years went on, decades went on, until one Monday, this father, he got sick. He was confined to his bed, and he was feeling pretty miserable. So he got through that week. He was miserable the whole week, until on Friday, he hears a knock on the door. He sort of shuffles to the door, full of sickness, opens it, and what does he see? All his mates, all his golf mates. And one of them says, mate, we couldn't let you miss Sunday. You're coming with us. So you can imagine how great that was for his sense of self. You know, the fact that he created this group of guys, they loosely played golf, but it was really about the fact that they made time to do a shared activity pretty regularly. And the studies show that particularly men, when we do shared activity together, then it allows us to develop deeper relationships, because it's through that activity, whatever that might look like for you, we share the experience, we live it together, we often sort of work together to maybe achieve a goal, and then afterwards we can reflect, and that actually breaks down a lot of barriers. So that's play, that's really the first pillar. The second one is connect. Did you know that 50% of men, half of the male population, wish that they could speak at a deeper level to their mates? So that means that a lot of us would like to speak about stuff that maybe we feel uncomfortable about, but we're not sure how, we don't have the tools, or we just don't want to. So there's a bit of a gap there. So this is something that I started to think about when I arrived in Australia. I had no frame of reference for any friends here. As you do, I joined a local sports club. For me, it was cricket. Kept following my favourite rugby league team, the Warriors. I'm not sure why I do, but they are in the finals this year, so something to look forward to. But I digress. So I met Aaron at the grand final in 2011, and Aaron actually went to school with a guy that he went to the same school. I was friends with his brother. He was a couple of years older. We got talking, we really gelled. You know how people, you just get on, you got the same values, maybe it's a shared sense of family, whatever that looked like. And I really enjoyed hanging out with Aaron. We would go to the footy. And so 2015, I remember in April, I thought, you know what, I'm going to take this conversation to this relationship to the next level. I'm a bit tired of just talking about the surface level stuff. You know, the stuff like work, footy or family. So I thought, how can I do this? I want a deeper relationship with Aaron. He's a great guy. So in the bowels of Amy Park, there's the restaurant down below there. And I remember saying, okay, let's do this. Let's take this conversation deeper. So we ordered our food. And I remember looking across the room at him. I said, Aaron, there's something I want to share with you. I don't want you to fix it. I just want you to listen. Here it is. And I shared something really vulnerable with Aaron that day. And to my great relief and surprise, he just listened. But then he actually shared something that was on his mind as well. And I could just tell, it wasn't verbal, but you could just tell that from then on, I knew that he felt like he could share, and the relationship did go a level below. So now whenever I call him or I text him, or I know that we can talk about anything we want. It doesn't really matter. So what I learned there is, if you're sort of thinking there, you know what, I'd like to think about a mate that you got in your life, and you think, I'd just like to maybe go a bit deeper with him, then try to just, what I call a vulnerability share. It might just be a phone call, you might catch up, just say, hey mate, I just want to share something with you. You don't have to do anything about it. You just need to just listen. That's it. So when we talk about connection, there's another example that I can think of that, that really sort of highlights this. There's a group that I started going to see. They're a networking group. Hands up, have you ever been to a networking group before? So I'm talking like a business networking group, or a group where you go and you talk about work, etc. Yeah, so it's all often about like, what do you do? The first thing you get there, you don't even shake hands yet, and they're like, so well, what do you do? Does that resonate with anyone? Yeah. So I joined this group, and it's all about, they don't talk about work, they don't talk about family, they don't talk about house prices. It's all about who you are as a person. And it was so refreshing. I got there, I didn't have to think about, I do this, how can I help this person? It was just a really relieving conversation. So, I got talking to this guy, Jeff, this Canadian guy, quite sort of gregarious. And he's like, we got talking about golf. And he said, why don't you come and play golf with me? So I went out to Altona near him in the west, and it wasn't until like the 10th hole. So we're halfway through a golf round. So we're talking maybe an hour and a half. Then he said, so what do you do? And I thought, how great is that? Like, we went through several hours of conversation without actually referencing or putting any sort of power in terms of what we do is in a job. So sometimes it's about where we meet people and, where we choose to spend our time. That can really help with that connection. Just sort of maybe think about where you are, who you spend your time with, where you go. Do they foster that kind of environment? So connection is the second pillar. The third I like to call strengthen, but also for me it's all about self-care. So self-care is really important, as we've sort of touched on so far. For us, we need to figure out a way to do it. And I remember as a 12-year-old, my daddy used to run his own business, and he was always working. And I would wait at the top of the drive for him to pick me up to play cricket. But my vivid memory is that he was never there. And I remember calling him. I said, hey Dad, you coming? And he would say, yeah son, I'm on my way. But the amount of times that he didn't show up, and I felt like he didn't care. 30 years later goes past, and I called up on him. I said, Dad, what was going on there? This is how I was feeling. And he told me, he never shared this before, but he said, I gave up golf, which he took up very late in life, for 7 years while your sister and you were born, because I wanted to be there for them. And that sort of floored me a little bit, because I thought, didn't know that about him. He shared something, but also now thinking about it, he gave up the one outlet that he had for any kind of self-care. Now he lives alone, he's in his early 80s, and you sort of think, if he was able to build that self-care into his life, and it didn't have to be 5 or 6 hours, but if he continued with a bit of self-care, how much more rewarding would he have in terms of relationships? Because he doesn't have a great amount of relationships there, which is really sad. And my hope is I don't want anyone in this room to feel like that in 20, 30 years, that you don't have anyone that you can speak speak about. But it all starts with thinking about how you can have some self-care in your life. There's a famous rugby player called John Kirwan, and he played for the New Zealand rugby team in the 1980s. He was a wonderful player. He'd have these length of the field tries, one particularly against Italy. He ran it past 8 players, and it was people still talk about it today, 30 years later. Anyway, I listened to a story about him, and he said that on that period of his life, he went through a deep depression. So much so that, he was contemplating some pretty dark thoughts. But he managed to, through some professional help, get through that. And later in life, now he came up with this solution that really has helped him. He calls it his daily mental health plan. And I call it your post-it note, plan. So you might see there on the back of your chairs, there's a yellow post-it note. Just take a little look and see if you can see a little post-it note there. It's not a magic trick. And so what we're going to do, the tool that he uses, he suggests that you think about 3, no more than 5 things that give you joy or comfort. So these are things not involving your family or things for you. It could be having a cup of tea or a cup of coffee by yourself. It could be walking around the block by yourself at lunchtime. It could be reading a book. It could be going for a bike ride. Whatever you think gives you joy and comfort. For me, it was always when I passed a golf course, I'd always feel a sense of calm. Maybe it was the manicured greens, whatever it looked like. For me, it's golf, it's reading, it's having a walk around the block, it's going for a quick run. That's the stuff that fuels me. But what I'd love you to do is take sort of 30 seconds, maybe we'll say a minute tops, and we just want you to, right now, don't overthink it. Just think about, if you can think about 3 things that give you a sense of joy, a sense of comfort, just for you. And we'll come back really quickly after that. Maybe 20 more seconds. Don't have to overthink it, just whatever comes to mind. Okay, how we go? Everyone got something down on paper? Just raise your hand if you got something down on paper. Yep, great. So I'm not going to ask you to share it, that's personal for you. But what I would like you to do is consider putting that on a place that you see fairly often, maybe your computer screen, maybe in the bathroom. Maybe you make duplicates of that particular note. Maybe the note will evolve. I know for me it's evolved. But whenever you're having a bit of a rough day, just have a think and think, you know what, I've done none of my daily mental health plan. I've done none of my post-it plan. Okay. So maybe tomorrow I'll do one of those things and see how I go. It just is like an anchor. For me, it's just, life can be like a bullet train where you're just speeding across and there's no real reference of slow down. So this is just a chance for you to just think about what's going to get me to slow down every so often. So the last thing to share around this idea of connect is I decided, well, okay, it's great for me, it works for me, but what about complete strangers, guys that don't know each other? So I got a group of guys, they all knew me, they didn't know each other, and I said, come along and come and play at Oakleigh Golf Course. You all kind of know about golf, doesn't really matter, but I'm going to team you up and I'm going to set you on your way and we're going to play very fast golf, go for a jog, go for a run, you'll be done in half an hour, and just let me just see what it's like. So I got Dave and Sid, I got Paul and Alex to run around the golf course, having a laugh, sharing stories, and they finished. You know, going on a bear hunt, that was referenced quite a few times because I think they were trying to find their ball. So they thought about, I'm going to go on a bear hunt just like me trying to find my ball. Anyway, you'll get that if you've read that book. And so when they finished, though, what I said, how did you find that? And they talked about things like they really bonded. You know, they really shared some stuff on the golf course. But also afterwards, you know, they talked about how do we balance being a dad, life in general, being in a business, what have you. And so for me, that was really the catalyst for doing what we're doing now, which is all about Tee30 Golf. So, you know, for me, I really believe that, as I say, these are going to be the pillars that are going to allow you to just show up better at home, at work, and for me, it's the constant thinking in your mind. How can I play more? How can I connect more? How can I have more sort of self-care? So in terms of, that's my mate Ben. He started it all. Him and his little head in the middle there. That was our first day when we played at Oakleigh. That's me and my mate Aaron. On that very night that I shared some vulnerable stuff with him, and he did the same. And this is my post-it note. It's actually got more than 3, so excuse me about that. But you can see they're pretty straightforward. And I'll just share you very quickly what this Tee30 Golf's all about. So this is just a very quick example of 2 guys who have never played golf before, and we got them out to play very fast golf. And fun's the operative word there. So there's lots of things that you can do as a guy. We reference things like networking, but you're not going to get any physical benefit out of that. You can go to a men's shed, and they're fantastic. But again, it's not going to help from a physical and maybe a connection point of view. You can decide to go to the gym, but you're not going to connect very well there unless maybe you share the same equipment or you go to a group class. So Tee30 is really integrating all these sort of elements around the stuff that we as guys value. It's that sense of self. We'll talk about it sort of briefly, but essentially the concept that I've come up with is how can guys come together more regularly and have something in the diary. Like you guys showing up tonight, it's something in the diary. So we have a founding membership. We run events all across the eastern suburbs of Melbourne. In the morning, like those gentlemen there, speed golf. We do lunch. We do evening, which is where we go to a simulator or go to a driving range and have a hit and have some pizza and chat about a theme around being a dad and just having that deeper connection. And we'll talk about that a bit more. The big goal here for me is really, in the next 30 years, I want to impact as many dads as possible and create a community where there's a group of guys really across Australia in every sort of major city and different localities who over that period of time really connect at this deeper level. Who, like our mate we talked about before, he had his golf group. Golf is just a metaphor. It doesn't have to be golf for you. But for us, well, for this sense here, golf is a great way to bring people together. So I want to see, not like my dad, but like our generation, we can really have these communities where we can go to the guys that we connect with regularly through our shared activity, and we can share stuff, and we can be vulnerable, and that's going to help us be happier because we have these good friends. If you don't know how to play golf, we can teach you. Sandy is a pro at doing that, and he's part of this whole idea around getting people into golf very, very simply. And that's part of being part of this group. And lastly, we'll hear from some of the guys around what they think.
Optimistic, encouraging other people, similar mindsets, and just coming out and enjoying other people's company.
You're swinging a bit of a jog and great coffee and great chat, so I highly recommend it.
It's a really great concept. I think it's important to talk about men's mental health and being that much together. Really got to somehow, get some better. But it's been a great night. It's my life.
That's it. Networking with golf is just a fun.
There's something different.
You want to play golf, you can get around 100 people every single night. This is
That's it.
That's it.
Thanks for your time.